The messages were shared by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Our very own Ellie Watson asked him about the messages just yesterday. Listen.
Mr. Secretary, the messages the White House called authentic did at the very least include sensitive details about targets and timing. Did you declassify that information before you put it in the chat? And are you using Signal to discuss operations as sensitive as the strikes against the Houthis on a government or a personal phone?
First, all I would say is the strikes against the Houthis that night were devastatingly effective.
Those same troops that you are proud of, do you regret putting information like the ones you did in the Signal chat that could endanger those same American service members?
Nobody's texting more plants.
Joining me now is retired U.S. Army Major and military analyst Mike Lyons. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. You are also a combat veteran of Operation Desert Storm, and that is where you commanded an artillery battery and were awarded the Bronze Star. So what do you make of these messages? Would you consider them classified?
Well, it wasn't classified up to a point. I think the message that the Secretary of Defense put in there when he starts talking about the strike in above itself, I think that crosses the Rubicon, becomes classified. But let's take a step back even further. This is all about process, and bad process, frankly, from a group of relatively inexperienced individuals who are maybe trying to do the right thing by gathering the right people initially in what was going to be a very important mission. Look, anytime the United States goes to war and fires on another sovereign nation, we have to have everything tightly wired here. So, you know, what started out as likely a good intent in this the Signal chat to organize people to do that spilled over to the operational. And it just frankly tells me from a process perspective that this group didn't practice. They didn't figure out what they were going to do first in order to make this mission go. And then it clearly spills over into the classified as it winds down.
And does the Army ever disclose attack methods like this? For example, saying that F-18s were used. As we know, the fight against the Houthis is ongoing. Does this compromise future campaigns?
Well, I'm not sure it compromises future campaigns. I mean, we attacked doctrinally, and what I mean by that is the first time we go in to make this kind of attack from the air, the first thing we take is the air defense platforms out. So that suppression of enemy air defense is the first thing that goes. And so, but there was too much information. They talked about the airframes. They talked about the Reaper drones. They had a lot more information there with regard to what they were attacking with and the date time groups as to when they were doing it. Our technology is so much greater, though, than what this enemy had, so that their confidence level was high that the air defense systems weren't going to take out our system. So I think that was kind of part of the bravado, I think, that I saw in this group chat as the results were finally released there. There's no question, though, when you start talking about buildings going down and targeting individuals like this thing did, it talked about we got the missile guy and his girlfriend or whatever. I mean, now you're talking sources and methods, because where that information came from remains to be seen. We don't know if that came from an ally, if that came from internal forces, and it tells me that we've been tracking that guy for a while. So, you know, again, there was much classified information and sources and methods that was released by the end of that group chat. Now, the administration can argue that they've declassified it now at this point, but in the moment, it clearly was something that was classified.
Yeah, but Mike, I have to ask, did you or your superiors ever share this type of information over a non-government secured method of communication?
No, absolutely not. And, you know, I worked as an intel officer as well. I could tell you this, in the moment, mistakes happen. You know, when in combat, there are certain things that sometimes get out on the radio, and there are intelligence leaks. This was something that, again, should have been pre-planned. And again, at the level we're seeing it at the Secretary of Defense and at the NSA level and the National Security Advisor level, it is just something we just hadn't seen before, and I wouldn't expect. The level of detail that you have the Secretary of Defense involved in is remarkable, frankly. I'm not sure we'd have seen this from previous Secretary of Defenses. That gets turned over to the uniformed military. Now, let's talk about who dodged the bullet here. There was no uniformed military on that chain, so they're out of their chain of command here for this, because I'm sure that all it would have taken is somebody to pierce the veil and say, look, we shouldn't be talking about any of this on this group chat at this point. So I think that just shows the level of inexperience, unfortunately, because the group has got great intentions, but this is serious stuff when you're attacking another nation like this.
Yeah. And I have to ask about consequences, because if you were still in the military, what would happen to someone who makes an error like this?
Well, there'll be an investigation, and the main question is, how did this reporter's phone number wind up on a cell phone that was eventually used in order to bring him into this group chat? I think there's going to have to be a deep forensic dive into how that happened. Michael Waltz says he doesn't know this reporter, doesn't know how that happened, but it did happen. There should have been accountability as to, once the group was set on making sure that everybody in the group was who they were. That fell down, but there would be an investigation. At this point, though, considering that all the players on the group chat are political, this comes down to a political decision. If this is in the military chain of command, there likely would be consequences. Anything from someone being charged with this for negligence, let's say, or relieved of their duties or something. But again, right now it looks like it's going to be a political decision, because all of the key players are all in politics.
Yeah, some very good perspective there. And do you think this could jeopardize our relationship with our allies who share intelligence with us?
I think it could, and I think we have to work at that. Look, our allies collect information on us. Every single one of the people on that chat has been targeted by our allies, our enemies. They've got to be the most collected information pieces that are in the world right now, because it's important. They want to hear what they're saying. That's why I just don't understand on any level why they didn't move this over to some other high source or other government way to communicate with each other once the operation started. So it could, especially if the sources and information that came about that target came from another host nation. So like anything else, trust will have to be rebuilt here. I think within the group, there'll be concerns about jumping into chat files like that going forward as well. But for sure, it's important the United States have allies and partners. And frankly, from a political side, we haven't done a very good job with that since the beginning of the administration.
Right. I'm sure we're not done talking about any of this just yet. Mike Lyons, thank you so much for joining us on the stream today.
Thanks for having me.